That's good if somebody figures it
Oh, he
out.
went home.
So anyway, I have just before we get started, I have a special guest here that wants to say hello.
Hi.
All right.
How are
The
you?
family affair here. She's not going to hang
Good.
around for the whole thing, but she just wanted to come in, peek in, honey. You're kind of off
I had
camera.
to
Yeah, there she is.
look
There's
great.
our girl.
I'm sorry we
Where's
didn't
where,
play golf.
where's your girl? She on the road still?
She's promoting her book,
Selling the book? Yeah. It's doing
but
well.
she's in Salt Lake City,
Okay.
but she's coming home tomorrow night.
I have a piece of the soccer team out there, weirdly.
Don't forget her
I don't know
birthday's
why.
coming up.
Yeah, don't forget.
You know we have the same birthday,
Yeah,
October 26th.
I do.
All right, you guys have
Big
fun.
All right,
birthday.
we will. So anyway, so we're gonna go, whatever the heck it is, try to keep it tight and light and whatever. You got a book, Citizen, coming out later in the year, which we'll talk about at some point a little bit without any surprises. And I think what we'll do is kind of cut this in two pieces. One, not with Citizen, and then once after the book comes out, we'll do a little bit about the book. But we can kind of talk Citizen. I love that title, by the way. I personally, Citizen, and because you're a citizen now. You're like me, so we can talk citizen to citizen, ex-president, and then the guy that writes too many books and whatever. And we've spent a lot of time together. We've been on tour a couple times, and we've had a lot of meals with Sue and Hillary and the whole bowl of wax. I met some of your family, which is kind of cool. And I love the idea of kind of human to human stuff. And I wish we could get back to that more in the country of just, here's a human being. Here's this guy, Bill Clinton, and he's a human guy. And here's this Patterson dude, and he's a human guy. And so insofar as we can do that, I'd like to do that. Do you want to be Mr. President or Bill, or just avoid it?
I want to be whatever you feel best
All
calling.
right. Okay. All right. So I'll avoid it. First little thought, and I don't mean this too seriously, but you read more than anybody I know. You just read and read and read. And any book or that stands out, this was just such an important book for you. Anything that not the president is missing, but something other than that.
I'm reading a book now that I'm almost done with called The Rise and Rule of the Mammals by a guy named Steve Brusatte. I discovered him. He's from Chicago, but he had an operation in Scotland for many years, and then he worked in America. He's an archaeologist, and it turns out that some of the best collection of dinosaur bones are both in Scotland and in New Jersey, because before the Earth split apart, they were joined. That is when the Earth split, that's basically part of New Jersey went to Scotland, or part of Scotland stayed behind, or however you want to say it. I learned a lot from this guy about how you make discoveries and how hard it is to draw conclusions from them, and how we're still learning things all the time. And it makes you think that we need to take a lot of care if we want people to hang around a long time.
We do. Now, you also read a lot of mysteries.
I do.
Just a couple of your favorite mystery writers, just for people listening and watching or whatever, so that they can catch up on a couple of your favorites.
Well, I love the Italian writer who's now recently passed away, Andrea Camilleri. I've read all of his books, except some of them are still being published. I think he's great. I like Lee Child, as you know.
Sure. Yeah, he did one of our events, which was great. He was a great moderator. Great moderator.
I like Michael Connelly.
Uh-huh.
His brother was in the White House communications office when I was president, and so I got to meet him at LA airport once. That's the only time I ever met him. I like Karen Slaughter.
Uh-huh. What a name for a mystery writer, right?
Yeah,
Karen Slaughter. Yeah.
And,
so anyway, we got an election coming up, and we're not going to get heavy here, but they got the economy and the border and the right to choose, and any kind of sleeper issue where after the election they'll go, what was really like Obamacare, maybe something that we're not talking as much about, but after the results, people are going to go like, we underestimated the importance of something.
That happened to me once. When I was campaigning for Hillary when she ran the first time in 2008. because she organized a Senate caucus on autism and was the first candidate for president ever to have a program on it. And I started talking about it, and I did over 300 rallies for her. And I was 300 for 300. Every single place, somebody came up to me afterward and said, I'm so glad I didn't know that. It's a need it. And I think that one of the things that I hated about the recent vice presidential debate is that J.D. Vance got to slide by on saying that Trump had actually solidified Obamacare, which couldn't be further
Yes.
from
Yeah. That's important.
60
That's
times
important.
repeal it, and never once, not even once, offered an alternative. As a result, it would have repealed the coverage for pre-existing conditions.
Yeah,
The
that's a
voters
huge thing. Yeah.
And the interesting thing to me is none of the moderators mentioned the fact that the Democrats won the midterms in 2018 by over 8%, the biggest margin in 100 years. And it was because John McCain at the 11th hour kept them, driven by President Trump, from repealing the protection for people with pre-existing conditions.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal.
And put a shine on it. There's no twist or anything. It's just
I don't know that they're making a big enough deal about that. Your buddy from Louisiana was talking about that the other day, and I think he's right on.
That's a big issue for people.
Yeah.
And if it's not in the front of their mind, they might bite on something else.
Yeah.
The real problem we got is the inflation problem, because it affects 100% of the people.
Yeah.
But it's getting better, but people don't feel it yet. And we've talked about, you and I have talked about this before. Very often when there are trends in the economy, particularly ones we don't like, it takes sometimes as much as 3 years before a majority of the people
right
that it's changed.
Right. Yeah.
But I think they need to look for things like, the Democrats, I think, need to look for things like this pre-existing conditions, because they gave them an opening.
Yeah. And I think in particular in areas where they're weak, that's going to be a big deal. You know, just you hear everything, and you've been hearing them for decades. What's the most promising as opposed to it's necessarily going to work 100% thing that you've heard in terms of things we could do at the border that would make a difference kind of right away?
I think it would make a difference right away if we adopted the plan that the Republican senators wrote that President Biden accepted. Because we basically, the big problem at the border is that you've got all this turmoil around the world, and people are trying to get to America, particularly people who live south of us. The problems in Venezuela, the drug trafficking going through Guatemala and Honduras and El Salvador. All of these things causing turmoil. Yet we are stuck with two things that are in conflict. One, a law that goes all the way back to President Johnson. It says that if you show up at our border with a legitimate fear for your own safety or that of your family, then we will give you emergency entry. And you can, from there, we can send you home when the emergency's over, or you can apply to stay, but then you got to get in line and follow the rules. That's fine. But that system was built for 400,000 people. As a result, you got a system built for 400,000 trying to handle 1.8 to 2 million people a year. You can't do it. Now,
here's another thing, just curious about your reaction to. I read somewhere recently that 40% of young people blame social media for the divisions in this country, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. Any reaction to that to surprise you at all? Or
no, I think there's a lot of truth to it. You know, first of all, we've had as you know, a precipitous drop in locally owned newspapers and radio stations. And with the traditional media in culturally conservative areas, that's been taken up almost exclusively by Fox or other, more right-leaning television networks. So I used to be able to walk in any cafe in Arkansas in any county, Republican or Democrat, and there was a locally printed newspaper, and the local radio station was on playing in the
Mhm.
cafe. You just don't have that anymore. So more and more people, however, are spending time on their own devices, even though
Mhm. Right.
irrelate the
Yeah. Yeah.
news of traditional sources, right?
Yeah.
And so when that happens, there's this thirst for clicks and retweets, and outrage beats them all for attracting
Yeah.
clicks and retweets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's polarizing us. There's no question about it.
Yeah. 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 No, it's it. We talked when we were at dinner the last time, we were talking briefly a bit, just want to go at it just a little bit again. The notion of whether it's a good idea or bad idea or mediocre idea of somebody like Kamala sort of announcing a couple of people that she's strongly considering for the cabinet, like Stan McChrystal or Bill McRaven or something like that, or a couple of financial people, to stress the idea that the presidency isn't about one person. It's about the team that you put together. Because I think, theoretically, she could have an advantage if she would talk about the team versus this guy that kind of wants to do it by himself. Just thoughts on that. Is that a terrible idea or,
Oh, I think it has some merit. I mean, it's got some downsides, but it's got some merit. And it would show that she wants a team, and it would reinforce her rhetoric that she is going to be real, reasonable and not what they're saying, a radical leftist or whatever. And
yeah.
I think she ought to do anything that reinforces the fact that people can rely on her to keep the ship of state running.
Mm-hmm.
She
Yeah.
had a line
Mm-hmm.
in her debate pointing out that she was the only person who ever actually prosecuted people for human trafficking over the border.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think, well, I may not want to vote for Trump, but he can't serve another term. So I'd only have to put up with that for 4 years. How bad could it be? Well, the truth is, it could be dramatically bad because he got a very disciplined plan this time.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of people he's going to put in. And he said he virtually ruined the Supreme Court, I think, at least from my point of view, and the unprecedented decisions they made. And they have announced that their judges are not conservative enough. Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society picked judges is out the window now. They're going to do it, and they're going to do it solely based on the likelihood that these people will vote the way Trump wants them to every single time there's a decision.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think, anything we can do to sort of kind of break this us versus them deal and get
Mm-hmm.
people to think there's
Yeah.
only 4 or 5% of the people in the middle who can move. And that's, if you win by 1%, you're a genius. And if you lose by 1%, you're a fool. I mean,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Kennedy once said victory has 1,000 parents or fathers and defeats an orphan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think anything we can do to sort of guard against, I think, unwarranted buyer's remorse. That is, I think she'll be a good president. The more time I spend around her, the more solid I think she is. And I think she's grown a lot in these last 3 years and learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She was telling the truth when she said, they said, well, your position was to the left of that when you were a senator. And she said, yeah, I've been here 4 years. I've seen things that I didn't see before.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And I think
And
people,
yeah, and she also, I mean, as she said, she's representing the people that in California. That was her job. Yeah, October can be really nasty, and obviously we've seen that in the past. We saw that with Hillary. October was a horrendous month.
it was horrible.
Yeah.
She won't have anything like Jim Comey. There'll never be anything like that again. Nobody will ever, I don't think,
Mm-hmm.
do what he did. And I mean, he did things J. Edgar Hoover wouldn't do. So I don't think we'll have to put up with it again. And the press indulged it because they thought she would win anyway, and it made it more exciting. Yeah. And one of my rules is somebody tells you you're going to win anyway, you should thank them for their time and get the heck out of the room quick as you can.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's what I tells you, you're gonna win anyway, it means they either favor or won't stop something they know is bad for you, and they may believe you'll win anyway, but you have to run like you're behind till the very last minute.
People, the press always want that yes or no answer, and a lot of times it's just not that simple. And I
Yeah,
think that's one of the things I've always noticed about you. It's not simple, and these easy answers, and it's not even being, they talked about even Vance being, slippery and whatever. Well, some of the stuff is not simple. It's not an easy answer. There's not a yes and no. I want to talk a little bit about your book, which we're going to get into this part a little late, after the book comes out. And is it late November?
Yeah, it's coming out in November.
Okay, great. As I said, I love the title. I think it's a great title, really great title. It's a really good cover, and the idea of you're out there now, you're a citizen. You're like the rest of us on some level. So you left office. You're 54 years old. And you must have had some idea of, oh my God, what's the post-president? What did you think it was going to be, the post-presidency versus however it's turned out?